This is a Founding Media podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Up and Comers, a podcast here in Austin, Texas, about the startup community, the innovation sector, and the entrepreneur community here in this amazing, great city. I'm Heather, your host, and today's podcast is brought to you by Founding Austin and Founding Media. Nice to see you here, and nice to see you here, Amos.
Good to see you again, Heather.
It's good to see you again. Amos Schwartzfarb is here with us today, and he's got three different things that he's going to be talking about because his life is, first of all, very fascinating. I've had a chance to get to know him better over the past year as one of the leaders in our city in this sector. And he's got an incredible startup history. He's got an incredible history with Techstars Austin, which is a local accelerator. And he's got a new book coming out called Sell More Faster this fall. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So, okay, I want you to start with a little bit more about, I'm going to throw you a total zinger.
Oh, I love it.
Throw you a zinger.
Bring it.
What drives you?
Oh, man, that is a zinger. I think about this question a lot because I've had a lot of jobs and roles and experiences in my life that I could say, like, yeah, I'm in a good spot. I can just kind of hang out, and I never do. And I've actually, left companies and leaving, after an acquisition, leaving money on the table to go do something else. Sometimes that something else doesn't pay anything at all. The best that I can come up with is I like self-inflicting emotional pain on myself. Not really, but kind of.
This might get deep. Okay,
yeah.
Just so you know.
I like solving things. I like solving things, especially when they're deeply interesting to me. And I can't always put my finger on what they are. But when I'm doing something and I see a more efficient way to do something, to do it, or a way to turn something into something bigger than what it is, I get very excited about that. And that could be professionally, that could be personally, that could be, with my family, with, my extracurricular activities. But I like pushing limits.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
so tell us a little bit more about your background. Where were you born? Where you went to school? Some of your interests, because I think it all plays into the story.
Yeah. So I was born in the Bronx, New York, third generation born in the Bronx. So my family's been in the States for a really long time. From Poland, Russia, and Germany. So far, 4 generations back, so a long time
nice.
ago. But we moved to Fort Lee, New Jersey when I was in first grade. So I like claiming the Bronx, but really I'm from Jersey.
Right.
And I'm very proud of that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you about growing up. I was just an average kid in a lot of ways, but also I liked doing things that were hard all the time, and I think maybe a better way to say it is I liked exploring lots of things. So I was on the wrestling team, and I wrestled from when I was very young, and I was in the marching band, and I was on the debate team, and I ran track, and I did not get good grades, but except in the classes that I really connected with the teacher. So I had the ability to get good grades, but I was like an average student. I think in a class of 190 people, I was 95th. Dead in the center.
Fascinating. Yeah.
When I left high school, I didn't really want to go to college. It was really important to my parents because I went to both of my parents' college graduations, and for them, it was important that I had a college education. And
wow, you went to both their graduations?
I went to both. Yeah, my dad's when I was 5, and my mom's when I was 16.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really cool.
That's a cool thing to say.
It is. Like when I look back at that, it's neat. And when I was going through it, I was just like, oh, this is normal. Most of my friends' parents, maybe not most, at least half of my friends' parents were not college educated. So it was where I'm from, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But it was really important to them that I went to college. So I did. I went to the University of Massachusetts because I couldn't get into Rutgers because I didn't have good enough grades.
Oh my!
Somehow I did for UMass.
Oh, that's great. My dad went to Rutgers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't. Is he from Jersey or?
Yeah, originally.
Oh, what part?
Yeah. Gosh, dang! What's the name of that little town they were from? Oh! Hold on a minute. It was
North Jersey, or you don't know?
I will get back to you on this.
Okay,
I'm totally forgetting this town. Go on. I'll respond before the end of this.
Yeah, no worries. along the way, I discovered a lot of things. I had been exposed, for example, to the Grateful Dead in high school, but I really discovered it in college. I had been exposed. I'd been an athlete growing up, but I discovered a couple of new sports, which was mountain biking and rock climbing. And so when I finally graduated college, I was like, okay, I'm free. I did what my parents asked me to do. Now I can go do what I want to do. And that was to go to move to California and rock climb. And I didn't really have like any career aspirations. And, I tell people this all the time and they're like, what? But like, I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. And I don't even really think of myself as one today. I founded a couple of companies. But really I just like I like to challenge myself with things that are interesting. And I don't really think about, when I'm getting into them, I might say, oh, I can see where this could go, right? That's the thing that excites me. But I'm not doing it because I'm like, oh, I'm going to take this to this place. I'm like, oh, I can see where this can go. So let's see if that's possible to make it happen.
Right.
So that's how I started my adult life. And then through a series of events that I think I said this to somebody once and they looked at me sideways and thought it was obnoxious. And then after I told the story, they were like, oh, no, I get it. I had kind of like a little bit of a Forrest Gump type of life in the beginning. And the first several things the companies that I fell into, whether I started them or was in early, were just serendipity and the right place, right time. And so like, for example, the first startup that I was in, I was working at a climbing gym in San Francisco, and the owner's like, "Hey, my friend Tom needs someone to pack boxes for his mail order company." The company was Shoreline Mountain Products. They were selling rock climbing gear, and he did it out of his house. It was just him answering the phone in the morning and then packing boxes in the night. And it was getting busy, and he needed someone to pack boxes. So I was employee number one. I packed boxes in his garage, and then over time, I started answering the phone also, and we got busier, and so we hired someone else to pack the boxes all day, and then I would only pack boxes in the afternoon, and I'd answer the phones in the morning. And then after being there for a few months, this was in 1996, a friend of mine in the East Coast was early in the internet, said, "Hey, how come you're not selling your stuff online?" And I was like, I don't know, because I don't know what that means. Like, I didn't have an email address at that point. Like, I didn't have a computer at my house yet. Like, I didn't know. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But she helped me understand what that meant. And she actually helped us realize that there was a different opportunity there. So we built a website called Shoreline Mountain Products and sold rock climbing gear online. And from the best that I can tell, we were one of the first e-commerce companies in the world, and sold that company to Mountain Gear. Later on. Pretty neat. Amazing. Yeah. And not a meaningful outcome for me. In fact, I had no equity in the company. So, it was just a thing that happened. The experience is great. And I didn't even know that I was missing out on anything. Awesome for Tom Shores. It's someone that I haven't talked to him in years, but I'm so thankful for that opportunity because it was the beginning of something that I didn't know a path I didn't know I was going to be on. Yeah.
It's amazing how life is like that. And certain personalities find themselves in those situations, I think. There's like a certain inner feeling or intuition about like, I have a learning opportunity here. Yeah. I could take advantage, or I could grow from this. I may the most valuable takeaway may not be monetary at all. But I loved reading your bio as to seeing, just seeing the journey you had with all these different startups and .coms and how it led you to this job you're in now, which is so interesting because now you're taking these people under your wing and helping them do similar things. Yeah. So not to go too forward because I want to hear a lot more about all this journey, but Techstars Austin is, obviously that's one of the reasons we have you on the show today because we're talking about the Austin scene. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your pivot from startup, and then growing into this role as managing director of Techstars.
Great, I will. So I did a bunch of startups. After every single one, I always said, I'm not doing any more. And then I kept doing it, right? I think, if you include Techstars, I've been in 7 startups and only one that has crashed and burned.
Right.
But after every single one, I'm like, I'm not doing this again. This is super hard and I've made some money and like, I'm just going to go chill. So that happened. I sold a company with Rob Taylor, who's now the CEO of Convey, called Black Locust, back in 2012, I think it was. And I was like, I'm not doing this again. But maybe, at this point, I sort of like, Black Locust was at the point where I was like, oh, maybe this is what I'm doing with my early adult life. And this is who I am right now. And so as I sort of acknowledge, like, okay, I'm in the startup world. This is something that I'm pretty good at. Maybe I can become an investor, but I didn't really know how to do that. And I just started developing deep relationships with investors, and I didn't know how to go down that path, but it was in my mind. I then started another company that failed called Joust. I was at that for a couple of years, and one of the investors was Jason Seitz, who at the time was the managing director of Techstars Austin.
Okay.
And at the same time, or the reason I met Jason was because Jason met Rob Taylor. And there's a whole other tangent here, which is like being your authentic self and following serendipity, right? The whole reason I know Rob is kind of random, and that's how I met Jason, which is where I am today. But Rob, when Rob and I exited Black Locust, he had met Jason, and Jason was new to town. He said, who should I meet? Rob introduced him to a bunch of people. I was just one of those people, but I became a mentor for the Techstars Austin program, and I also invested in Jason's fund at that time. And so I had never invested in a fund before. I didn't know what that meant. I kind of understood what mentorship was. I had never heard of Techstars, but I figured what better way to keep an eye on my investments is by being really active as a mentor.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't know what it would mean further down the line. But when we finally decided that Joust was, that we were going to shut it down, and it's not technically shut down, but when I was going to leave, I went to Jason, have a beer with him, and to tell him that, hey, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to be returning your capital. Yeah. And he said, that sucks, but it's okay, because I've been trying to figure out a way to ask you if you would interview for my role, because I'm moving to a new role in the company.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it ended up working out really well. And had he not invested and had, all these other string of events, I wouldn't have ended up as the managing director.
So had you already moved to Austin at that point?
Yeah, I've been in Austin for 11 years already.
Okay.
Yeah, which feels like I still feel like a newbie here, but I don't think I am anymore.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
It's 10 years. That's your.
And I've actually been coming here for business since 2001. So I've been coming here for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
In fact, I worked at Hot Jobs in the late 90s and early 2000s. We had an office on Congress in the building next to where the early Techstars office was, we certainly weren't the first, but we had to be one of the first tech companies downtown. And Hot Jobs was acquired by Yahoo and then acquired by Monster, and it doesn't exist as a brand anymore. But so we've been coming here for a long time.
I remember that company. That's amazing.
So
what did you do what was your role there?
I had a lot of roles there. Okay. I started in sales. It's a really fun story how I ended up there. So I was doing a little stint for an ad agency in San Francisco, and we had wrapped a TV commercial for Chevron. And we were at a bar celebrating, which is what you do when you wrap a commercial.
Right.
And there was this dude sitting by the bar by himself. And I'm very friendly. I just kind of I see that. I'm like, hey, come hang out with us. And the guy's name was Dave Carvajal. He was one of the. Do you know Dave?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, Dave knows a lot of people. Okay. So Dave was one of the founding members of Hot Jobs, and he was in San Francisco recruiting because they were starting a San Francisco office. And he was telling me about this company, Hot Jobs, that was going to IPO. I didn't know what IPO meant, but I was like, yeah, that's really cool. He's like, you should come interview. And so anyway, there's a lot more to that story. But so I started as a salesperson. I almost got fired because I sucked. I started with a class of 10 people.
This is an example of vulnerability expressed by really advanced entrepreneurs. Okay, go on.
So there were a bunch of people in New York already. There was like 3 or 4 salespeople in San Francisco, and I started with a class of 10 people. And I was the last person to make a sale in that class, and of sales hires. And from what I heard after was I was days from getting fired, and then all of a sudden I made a sale, and I made another, and I made another, and I think the second or third month I was one of the top producers, and then I was for a while. And then after about 4 or 5 months, maybe 6 months, we went public, and we decided to open up offices all over the country. So Austin was one of our offices, and DC and Chicago and Boston and LA. And so they asked this guy AJ Johnson to open up the LA office, and they said, pick 2 people to go with you. So he picked me and this guy Scott Shepard, and so we moved to LA to open up the LA office, and then he became a sales manager in the LA office and built out that whole sales team in LA. after I did that for about 6 months, I was getting really bored of selling and managing people. And so what I realized at the time was, if I'm going too far down a rabbit hole, let me know. Like we had awesome sales. We had an incredible sales machine, like the best that I've ever been around. But no one had said, oh, we also need to service our clients. So we had this super leaky bucket. And I was like, oh, I think I know how to fix that. I don't know why I had the balls to say that because I'd never done anything like this before. But we were a young company, and they let me try to fix it, and I did through several different things, and then so that escalated into a bunch of higher roles there. So I ran that division of the company for a while. Then we sold to Yahoo. When we sold to Yahoo, a whole bunch of other turnover. I helped restart the San Francisco office. And then when we were done with that, I moved over to strategic sales where I built out their account management team, and then I ran part of their sales team. And this whole time, once we sold, I realized like big companies aren't for me. I was looking for my escape hatch, but I stayed for probably a year after that.
I'm looking at the notes I have here for the interview, which of course none of this matters anymore because this is going, I'm like, this is a story of you, it's like a really great opportunity to learn more, especially about your background in sales, because that's clearly, your new book.
Yeah, that's where it all came from, was like those days. Yeah.
So I don't want to pivot to the new book, but the new book, like I'm just curious, like this new book that you have coming out, obviously Techstars is involved with it too. Yeah. And it's going to be, I'm sure, a handbook for many people going through the
I
Techstars
hope so.
program.
That's the intent. Yeah.
That's what I took away after I really looked into it a lot more. So tell us a little bit more about the book and how it relates to the work you're doing right now.
Sure. And if I may, I'm going to start with the genesis of why I wrote a book.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't set out to write a book. I really didn't. And I'm a big believer in just being your authentic self. And like
knowing you, it was journal entries that just turned into a book.
It kind of was, right? Like, I mean, I really believe in like serendipity and like leaving your ears open for, your earballs open for opportunities that present. So one of the things, we've got the managing directors in Techstars are incredible. They do a really good job of hiring super high quality people. There isn't a person that I could think of that isn't super high quality, with present company excluded from that.
Yeah.
But most of the people don't have a background in sales, right? They're technical or their product or whatever it is. Sales isn't one of them. So I get a lot of requests for, hey, can you come to my program and do a sales workshop? Or hey, can you talk to this company and coach them a little bit? And when I get the request specifically around a workshop, I always say, well, what do you want me to do a workshop on? And I'll see if I can create something. And no one ever had a really good answer. And so I finally said, you know what? I'm going to digress just a tiny bit. I don't know that this whole journey would have started if I hadn't tore some cartilage in my ankle. Because I'm very active, and for 4 months I couldn't be. And so I had I lost my shit for a little bit, and then I was like, I have to find something.
S-bomb. No,
Sorry.
It's good. Actually, go. We're in Austin. No.
I had to find something to do with my energy because I don't sit still well. And so I said, okay, I've got some time on my hands. Let me come up with a couple of workshops. And as I sat down to think about what workshops could I create for some of the other programs in Techstars, I realized that there were a lot, and I came up with a list of 18. And so my first thought was, okay, I'm just going to poll the other managing directors and see where it lies, and then I'll come up with a couple workshops based on their polls. Yeah. And as I read them, I'm like, some of this isn't going to mean anything to anybody except me. So let me do a quick little blurb on all of them. That little blurb turned into 6 blog posts. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I wrote blog posts. Maybe Techstars will publish them on the blog, right?
Right.
And so as I sort of started to send those around to different friends and peers, just for feedback to make sure like that you can comprehend what the point was and that they were readable. And I'm not really a writer, or at least that I don't consider myself one in present day. So I wanted a lot of feedback, and I got a lot of feedback like, hey, there's probably a book in here somewhere, which I thought was a nice compliment, but still not an aspiration. Like I at the time I couldn't fathom what it would mean to sit down and write a book. Right. And then serendipitously, one of the first companies that I invested in at Techstars Austin was a company. At the time they were called Authors.me. Now they're called StoryFit. And at the time they sold AI data packages to publishers. Well, when they pivoted to the film industry, one of the people who went through Techstars had come from publishing and went back to publishing as an acquisition editor for Wiley. Totally random. She reached out to me. She had no idea that this was all happening. She said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I just took a job at Wiley as an acquisition editor, and I was wondering if you knew anybody at Techstars who might be interested in writing a book. It was just timing.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, well, interestingly enough, I did this thing. Read what I wrote. It might be shit. Sorry. It might be trash, but if you think there's something here, I'm open to a conversation about it. And so I sent it to her. She came back within a day, and she's like, there's something here. Let's work on a proposal together, which apparently is not typical. Like, so usually you have to submit the proposal. So we did it together. We got it. One of the things through this process was that I turned to Techstars and said, I don't think I'd actually signed a deal with them yet, but I was pretty close. I turned to specifically David Cohen and Brad Feld, and I said, hey guys, like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and you guys have both written books. Can you give me some advice? And they have been incredible through this process.
Oh, that's
but
great.
one of the things that David Cohen, who's the CEO of Hashab, said is, if you'd be willing to name the book Sell More Faster, which I didn't have a good title yet, and I think that's a great title, and it's congruent with like Do More Faster, which is a book he wrote, and some other titles that may come out down the line, and put a little Techstars branding on it. Not only would we help you, but we'll promote it through the network, and
so smart.
So I told them that, and it was like, done. Okay, let's do this. And then as I started, I like to think I'm decently self-aware. One of the things that I realized really quickly was this is going to be super hard. I have a program that's starting in January, at the end of January. If I don't finish this by the end of January, it's going to sit until the fall. I don't know that I'll ever do this because I'm going to get distracted, and I know myself well. So then I turned to them and I said, hey, can we get on a really tight timeline and have this thing be published and in stores so that I can use it for recruiting in the fall? And they were like, you're crazy, but sure, let's try. And if it doesn't happen, we'll push the date.
Wow.
And then we did. We got it done. I sat, and I think this book was in me though, right? Like it's literally everything I've done professionally and all the people I've worked with. So I was able to sit down and write it in about 6 weeks.
Oh my God. I can't wait. I really can't wait to read it.
I'm terrified that I think the content is good, but I am terrified that people are going to read it and finally find out that I'm a little bit of an imposter.
Oh, wow.
But I think the content is good. We'll see if the writing is good.
Wow. Well, I think you've got the right stage to present your, the knowledge that you have. It's not, I don't think it's strange that these things keep happening to you. Through your life, you've had doors opening and opportunities happening, and clearly this book opportunity, the Techstars thing. It's like I said, there's certain personalities and people who energetically invite things to come to them, and I think that's how you are.
I hope so.
Yeah,
life is short. We should enjoy every little.
And you take advantage of those opportunities. You don't push them away. You don't say no. You made it happen in the time frame that you could make it happen. I mean, that's how it works. Yeah. That's success right there.
Thank you.
You're not. That's awesome. I can't wait to read the book, and I'm sure that So I'm sure a lot of people out there will want to read it too. So tell us more. It's coming out in September.
It comes out on September 4th.
Okay.
If you're here in Austin, we'll be sending out invites in about 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm not sure from when this will actually air, but we'll have a launch party on September 4th.
Right.
Josh Baer and Capital Factory were gracious enough to give us some space to do that. So we'll do it at Capital Factory.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's all forthcoming. And what else can I tell you? What is it about? It is meant to be so. The reason that I wrote it is because aside from that long story that I told you, when we sort of looked around and said, what is there? What are the resources to help a founder from day zero to figure out, do they have a sellable product? How do you figure out product market direction? How do you figure out product market fit? How do you build and scale sales? There really wasn't something that took you from day zero that's playbook style. And so my intent with this book is for you to be able to like open it up and read it like a recipe. Right. It doesn't read like a recipe, but that's the intention, right? So you say, okay, I have an idea for a company, or I have a company that has been started. How do I figure out if I know who my customers are? How do I know that the thing that I've created is what they actually are buying from me? Not what I'm selling them, but what they're buying from me. And why do they want that? And so I call that the W3 method, which is what I did, what I physically launched at a company called business.com, which is the thing that made us go from, 8 or 10 million in revenue.
So the W3
to
method, tell us more about that. I read about that.
So it's who, what, and why. Who are you selling to? Why do they buy, and why do they buy it? And what I propose is that if you can't answer emphatically with confidence what those three things are, you cannot grow a sales organization. You can't grow a meaningful business. You might be able to get sales, but you're not going to have something that's long-term that generates value for someone else. And if you can't generate long-term value for someone else, you can't build a long-term sustainable business. And so the whole book is based off of that. And so I refer back to it over and over and over again throughout the book.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that you're going to have some speaking engagements about the book. And once this rolls out, there's hopefully a lot of opportunity for people to hear you talk about it and maybe, learn from you directly. Yeah. So that's going to be fun to watch too.
Yeah.
So you now have a book. You have a career behind you, a lot of experience. You've been managing and director of Techstars. Do you see yourself authoring more books? What do you see in the future?
Oh, gosh. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not sitting here today thinking like I have 5 more books in me and I know what they're going to be and I'm my new plight is to be an author. I would say that there are topics that inspire me, and if this book does reasonably well and Wiley is interested in me writing another book, I might try to find another topic to do it on. I don't know that I'll rush to do it in a year. It might be 3 years or 5 years. I have some things that are sort of percolate in my head that would be fun to talk about. We've talked about some of this. Like I have this belief that there's, while there's a lot more focus being put on the emotional aspects of being a founder, I don't think enough people are thinking about the convergence of business operations and emotions, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Yeah. I'm fascinated by risk. This whole launch into startups really started because I was an adventure athlete, not because I was a startup person. Right. And I haven't lost that, right? I don't push the same limits, mostly because I don't have the time and I've got a family now. But I'm fascinated by what risk means to different people, and there's a quote, so I'm sure most people that are listening to this probably saw Free Solo, which if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. It's about this guy who free solos El Capitan. His name's Alex Hanold. There's lots of people that came before him that didn't free solo El Cap, but that were amazing. And there's this one free soloist, John Bakar, and he was interviewed in the 80s or the early 90s on like the Johnny Carson show or Letterman or something. And they asked him like, well, don't you feel like you're putting your life at risk? And he said something that just like it hit home so hard, which was he's like, I don't think I'm going to fall and die. So to me, there is no risk. And I think that embodies like what we all think of as entrepreneurs and as founders. Like, of course, we know there's inherent risk, but we don't think about it as risky because we're so sure. Right. And so I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by risk. And I don't know what that means yet in like the greater scheme of things, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of course in the context of the podcast, it's I'm a podcast host, but besides that, I have a company, and a PR firm, and it was like taking that step to jump off the cliff into the abyss where you really can't predict things beyond a few months a lot, in running a business. At least starting out, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that was, I just will never forget that, because once you learn to live in that space of not knowing and you become comfortable with not knowing, it's kind of a breeze. Yeah. But before you do it, it's so scary. Yeah. It's so scary. At least for me. I know everybody's different. Everybody has different experiences.
I think it is for everybody, even if they don't want to admit it. But what's really interesting about what you said, and my partner Zoe Schlag, who runs the Techstars Impact program, we talk about this all the time, specifically with our founders, which is that place of like now, because we've been doing things like this for so long, I'm more uncomfortable when it is repeatable, when you're in that sort of repetition. Yeah. That and it goes back to the first thing you asked me, which is like what drives me. Like I think like being uncomfortable is really comfortable, and having to solve the Rubik's Cube of life or whatever the thing is that you're in is super fun if you can just, it's like anything, right? It's like if you've never run before and you go and you run a mile, it's going to be hard. But right, you run a mile, then it becomes easy. Then you run 2, then you run 3. Like I think it's the same thing. You build that muscle around like being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and you can do some really amazing things.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Manifest things.
Yeah.
Bring things to you.
Yeah.
So, and that might be your next book, actually. Just saying. The serendipity, right place, right time. I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, I don't know if we've gotten to our mark, but I will say that this is a very special person here in Austin. And one thing I do want to talk about before we end is just Techstars and the cohorts that you're in charge of, your partner is always in charge of, and where you guys are, because there might be people out there interested in being a part of it. So what can you tell us?
Well, firstly, if you don't know about Techstars, one, you can definitely go to the website and learn a lot more. It's just techstars.com. Typically, Zoe and myself and Trevor, who works with us, we will take pretty much any meeting. So we're happy to talk about Techstars anytime. We love what we do. And so we have 2 programs that run in Austin. I run what's called a horizontal program. So I can invest in any kind of company via the accelerator. And I can talk about the accelerator a little bit. The thesis that I stand behind is that I believe if I can get conviction that a founder can build a meaningful company and have reasonable confidence that there's an existing market, even if we're not currently going after the right market, that's an exciting investment for me. Mm-hmm. Because the thing that I've seen over and over and over and over again is that the only thing we know for sure day one is that we're wrong about a lot of stuff, and we don't know what that is. So we have to find people that are resilient and smart and creative to work on the hard stuff. So my investment thesis is for the accelerators all around that. And then Zoe's is that coupled with it has an impact focus, so a social impact focus. So your company has to be doing something good for the world. And so because of that, we've got some really interesting companies that go through that are trying to solve things like global air pollution, child care and health care for the underserved, or human rights in factories in foreign countries and that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so people can go to the website to learn more. You guys are actually going to be soon accepting applications for the
applications for my new program are open until the end of August. Mm-hmm. And then we have about a 6-week period where we'll look at the applications, do a bunch of follow-up interviews, and then we'll make decisions in October for our program starting December 2nd, which will run until the beginning of March. We'll end right before South by, so then we can be done and graduated and ready to take on South by. Yeah.
That's a whole nother opportunity.
Yeah.
Just right here in front of our eyes in Austin. So much happening here.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you. And if there's anything else you want to say, here's your last moment. What else do you want to tell everybody?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. This was so much fun. I always love hanging out. And what do I want to tell everybody? I don't know. If you're a founder starting a company, awesome. Go for it. Walk with confidence and take the risk. It's fun and it's a worthwhile journey.
And there's a lot of resources out there for you.
Yep.
So check out Techstars just as one example of that.
Yeah. And Sell More Faster. You can actually get my book, pre-order my book now at sellmorefasterbook.com.
That's the plug I was waiting for.
Okay. I'm not good at plugging myself.
Yeah,
sorry. sellmorefasterbook.com.
All right. Amos, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.